Hi there, my name's Justyn. Thanks for joining me as I come to our second part about heaven. Last time our senior pastor Johnny talked about 5 foundational truths about heaven. This time I want to think about how believing in heaven changes the way we think about 3 things. When it comes to heaven, we've got lots of questions and I'm probably not going to answer any of them. Well, I might answer one for you. I'm going to say another question is a stupid question, even though there are no stupid questions, but we'll get to that later. And hopefully some of it might make you think a little bit more. What's the worst meal you have ever had? I wonder what the worst meal you have ever had is. For me, I was staying with a family in the UK down south, and they were looking after me for a little bit, and they were really kind and really generous. And they said, "Oh, Justyn, your time, your week with us coming to an end. We want to treat you. We're taking you out to a restaurant in Sandbanks." Now, if you don't know, Sandbanks is one of the most expensive pieces of land in the UK. Like to buy a house there, to buy a shop or like anything, it's like one of the most expensive places to live. And there are some beautiful restaurants in Sandbanks all along the coast, but they're all fish restaurants. And I hate fish. Like I can't stand fish. I can't smell it. I can't taste it. I can't touch it. I was like, it's really horrible to me. And this wonderful family took me to one of the most expensive fish restaurants in the whole of the United Kingdom. I closed my eyes, just pointed at the menu, went, "Mahi mahi." I have no idea what that is, but I'll have one of them and the strongest, bitterest coffee you can bring me. Oh, like it took me ages to eat it, and I was trying to pretend how lovely it was. I was trying not to vomit in front of their faces. I was trying to be gracious because they'd been so generous, but I just wanted to scream, "I'm a Christian, get me out of here." I don't know if you're a fan of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, but it's a program I could never go on. Number 1, because I'm not a minor celebrity. But number 2, if I can't even eat fish, can you imagine me trying to eat a witchetty grub? If you're unfamiliar with the show, kind of minor celebrities are sent off to live in the jungle and they're given all these gruesome challenges to face. And if they can survive the challenge, they get to stay. But if they can't face eating whatever widgety grub or worm or gross food that's been put in front of them from the jungle, they can shout, "I'm a celebrity, get me out of here," and they get to escape the experience. When we think about heaven, I think sometimes we're a little bit like that. We're a bit like, "I'm a Christian, get me out of here." Heaven is like this place of escape when all the difficult, nasty, painful, horrible things that we get tired of on earth, when we can't do it anymore, we get to kind of escape and get taken away. Even some of the songs we sing kind of reveal that thinking. We sing things like, "I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away." Notice I didn't sing it for you there. That's my gift to you. We often think heaven is this place that we can escape to. Now, there's elements of truth to that, but often when it comes to heaven, it's more wishful thinking than biblical thinking. Here are the 3 things that I think a biblical view about heaven transform for us. So a biblical view about heaven transforms the way we think about earth. Actually, heaven isn't our destiny. I'll come back to that in a few minutes. A biblical view of eternity transforms how we live now. And a biblical view of the resurrection transforms how we face suffering. This isn't necessarily heaven is, "I'm a Christian, get me out of here." Actually, when we think biblically, it changes the way we think about the earth, changes the way we think about how we live, and it changes what we think about suffering. If you've been catching up with Renewal or around recently or watching some of our messages back, you will know that we've spent a good chunk of time in Ephesians looking at the plan. Let me remind you of the plan. Ephesians 1:9, Paul says, making known to us the mystery of his will according to his purpose which he set forth in Christ, as a plan for the fullness of time, to unite all things in him, things in heaven and things on earth. That's God's plan. Not that there would be separation, but that everything would be united in heaven and on earth, everything brought together in unity in Jesus. That's why heaven isn't this kind of random celestial mythical space kind of over there that we'll escape everything to. No, that's not the plan. The plan is that everything gets brought together and made new in Jesus. When it comes to death, the hardest thing for us often to process is the separation. We're not used to the separation. It's really hard to think that loved one, that friend, that mum, that dad, that gran, that aunt, that uncle, that child, that close one that we've been so used to being with is now separated from us. You see, sin brought in separation. When as humans we went our own way from God, we separated ourselves from him. But God's plan is to bring everything back together in Jesus. I'm going to read to you from the book of Revelation, which is right at the end of the Bible. And we're going to read the last but one chapter, some verses from chapter 21, 1-8. It says this, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people. And God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eye. And death shall be no more, nor shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. And he who was seated on the throne said, behold, I am making all things new. Also he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. And he said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give from the spring of water of life without payment. The one who conquers will have this heritage. I will be his God, and he will be my son. But as for the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, as for the murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. See, God has a plan to unite everything in Jesus and to make everything new. Some challenging words at the end of those verses, but just to say, hey, if you want to be separate from God, if you don't want to unite with Jesus, if you don't want to come back to the Father, then actually God won't force his plan on you, and you can have what you choose. But the plan is for everything to be united. So a biblical view of heaven transforms how we think about earth. See, we see in those scriptures that the New Jerusalem comes down from heaven, comes down to earth, and then it says God will dwell with his people. As Johnny said last time, heaven is where God dwells. But at the end of time, that's why I say our destiny is not heaven. Actually, heaven is coming down to earth, and heaven and earth become united and become renewed. Actually, God's desire has always been that as his creation, we would rule and reign on the earth. That was the plan given to Adam and Eve, that they and everyone since have royally messed up. But that is the plan that Jesus will bring to completion at the end of time, that we'll be united with him and will rule and reign on the earth. So when we think about heaven, actually it's not that we're escaping this earth and disappearing off over here. No, at the end of time, heaven will come down to this earth and all things will be made new. Say the Lord's Prayer with me if you know it. Our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. God has never wanted a separation. He's always wanted heaven and earth to be one. So there's some things that still exist in the new creation. One of those is the nations. So if you read the Old Testament, kind of the Ezekiel and Isaiah in their prophecies, they give hints about the nations kind of at the end of time into eternity, that they're still around. But Revelation 22, the next chapter on from the one where we're counting, says this: on each side of the river grew a tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, with a fresh crop each month. These leaves were used for medicine to heal the nations. I love that idea that when heaven comes down to earth, when we reach the end of time and God makes everything new and unites everything under Jesus, then there's a river that runs through the city of Jerusalem with trees growing over the side with leaves that heal the nations. It's interesting that there seems to be a healing process that's taking place. But actually, that's why things like war break God's heart. Not just because of the individual suffering of those who are victims of it. Of course that breaks God's heart and should break ours too. But the nations were never meant to be at war together. Our differences were never meant to separate us and put us at odds with each other. We were supposed to use our differences to unite together. And in the new heavens and the new earth, the nations still exist, but God brings his healing to them. He restores them and restores our relationships with each other. So it looks like I'm still going to be English in heaven. It's why things like climate change matter. How we care for the environment, how we treat the patch of planet that we've been given to look after, how we care for the humans who are around us. It's not a case of wrapping all this up and disappearing off somewhere else. No, God wants us to be showing that one day he will make everything new. The earth and the nations will be made new and will continue. And so a strong theology of heaven changes the way we think about earth. Also, one of the questions we often ask is, will we recognize each other in heaven? I want to give a strong yes. You see, in Revelation 6, John says there are these martyrs, these Christians who've been killed because they've been following Jesus. And they call out to God, how long until you recompense us for the suffering? How long for you kind of pay us back for the fact that we lost our lives on earth? There's some interesting things about that. They're still recognizable. What happened to them on earth, they're still recognizable in heaven as that. The fact that they were martyred on earth, when they're seen in John's vision in heaven, he can still identify, those are the ones that lost their lives. What happened to them on earth continues through into their identity into heaven. Then in Revelation 6, John sees a great crowd of people worshipping God. And he says, from every nation, tribe, people and language. He's like, I can see the English there. And there's the people from the West Midlands. And there's the Brummies. And there's those from the Black Country. So in heaven, actually the things that kind of feed into our identity on earth don't seem to disappear, but actually they seem to get renewed and made new. Will we recognize each other in heaven? I think a strong yes. Our relationships to one another will change, but actually we'll still recognize each other. So a biblical view of heaven transforms how we view the earth, the climate, the nations, and the people that are around us. Do you know, if we're going to know each other in heaven, best be nice now, hey? Biblical view of heaven not only transforms our view of earth, but it transforms how we live now. Jesus' parables, often a lot of them end with, if you're faithful in little, you'll be faithful in much. And these parables give us this stories of how those who've been given things to look after, if they've done it faithfully, are then rewarded when they enter into the rest of their master. But Paul, in 1 Corinthians 3, gives this real strong warning. He says, anyone who builds on that foundation may use a variety of materials, gold, silver, jewels, wood, hay, or straw. But on the judgment day, fire will reveal what kind of work each builder has done. The fire will show if a person's work has any value. If the work survives, that builder will receive a reward. But if the work is burnt up, the builder will suffer great loss. The builder will be saved, but like someone barely escaping through a wall of flames. So, I'm in my early 40s now, and I get a letter every year from the pension company saying, Mr. Towler, your projected retirement age is this, and your projected pension is this. Have you got enough to make sure you can live when you get there? And I'm kind of like, will retirement exist? Is that a lot of money or not a lot of money? Like, what will inflation do? Will AI have replaced me by then? Will I be plugged into a machine and just told to kind of keep working? Who knows? I can't really think that far ahead, but there's a bit of anxiety in me that, hey, am I gonna have enough when I'm no longer able to earn? God never wants us to live from anxiety or pressure or threat. But it's a really good question to ask. Is the way I am living now going to leave me anything when I get into eternity? Paul makes it very clear, when you put your trust in Jesus, you're saved. But then he tells us in 1 Corinthians 3 that actually everything that we do from that point, Jesus is going to test by the fire. You might think I'm preaching a brilliant message right now, or you might think I'm preaching a terrible message. You might want to leave that in the comments. I might think I'm preaching a brilliant message, or I might be thinking, oh gosh, this is terrible. I must be tired this week. The reality is, actually, how will we know? Well, we'll know on that day when we stand before God, and everything that we have done for him, he will pass through the fire. And some of the things are going to burn up and have no eternal value. But actually some things are going to remain and are going to be a reward for the worker. Now, when you look at 1 Corinthians 3, there's a lot going on there, but there's some things that are quite easy to pull out. There's lots of pride going on. People are dividing into camps in the church and going, I prefer this leader, I prefer that leader. People are jealous of one another and they're quarreling. And I think I would just say anything that we do for God that involves our pride is probably not going to last into eternity. Anything that we do out of a humility and a heart to worship God and serve his people, maybe that is the stuff that will survive the fire and last into eternity. I think it's less about what we do and more about how we do it. But I do wonder if some of the Christian leaders that we idolize and we celebritize and we go, wow, look at them, look what they do for God, they're so amazing. I wonder if they're the ones that are going to have a lot left on Judgment Day. Or I wonder if there's going to be some people that we really don't know who they are. We never really knew what they did, but God said, I saw when you were serving my people. I saw when you were reaching out to the hurting. I saw when you gave food to the hungry but didn't ask for anything back or any credit or praise. I saw how you quietly and humbly did what I asked you to do, and those kind of works will pass through the fire. I don't know, but we're all going to find out. So, a strong biblical view of heaven and eternity should change how we're living now. What are we doing now? How are we using our time now? How are we using our resources now? What are we doing in our hearts now that is going to last into eternity? Oh, if we trust Jesus, we're saved. But Paul says, hey, he's expecting you to build with what he's given you. But make sure you're building the right things in the right way so that it doesn't all get burnt up. Last thing then, a biblical view of the resurrection transforms how we face suffering. A biblical view of heaven transforms what we think about earth. A biblical view of eternity transforms how we use our time now. And a biblical view of the resurrection transforms how we face our suffering. In our reading in Revelation 21, this fascinating thing happens. The New Jerusalem is coming down from heaven. And if I was Jesus, if that was me, I'd have this long gold staircase. And as Jerusalem's coming down, I'd be like, da, 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 everything's united in me. I'd have more sparkles than Beyonce. I'd be like, this is my moment. But what does it say Jesus does? It says he will wipe every tear from their eye. In that moment, that is all about Jesus and all about everything finally being united into him and all about him receiving all of the worship and glory that he deserves. In that moment, he comes to his children and he says, those tears you cried when you lost that loved one? That pain you went through when you suffered in your health? That emotional torment you experienced when they did that to you? I'm going to take a moment right now and wipe that tear away from your eye. I just think it's amazing. Sometimes, so often, the suffering that we see on earth feels so meaningless and pointless. And you're just why does this happen? Why is this being prolonged? Why doesn't this just end? And there aren't easy answers to those questions. But I want to tell you this, every tear that you cry on this earth, one of the first things Jesus will do in the new heavens and earth is wipe that tear away from your eye. It doesn't just go poof and suddenly all the memories have gone. No, he actively comes to you and goes through a process of comforting and consoling you for everything that you experienced and suffered on this earth in the moment when he's receiving all the glory and honor. So heaven isn't necessarily somewhere just to escape to and disappear off to. But I want to encourage you in your pain now, in your suffering now, in what feels fruitless and frustrating now, just know that in the new heavens and the new earth, the pain you're experiencing now is nothing compared to the glory and the comfort that Jesus will bring you then. So, a biblical view of heaven transforms how we think about earth. It transforms how we think about how we use our time, and it transforms how we face our suffering. I actually think the more we learn about heaven and eternity, the more fruitful we can be on earth right now. I hope that's given you some questions and some things to think about.
Hello, my name's Naomi. It's been great to have you with us for our message here at Renewal. If you want to find out more about what it means to follow Jesus, you can visit renewalcc.com/next steps, and you'll be sent a few videos which might answer some of those bigger questions that you might have. Likewise, maybe you just want to say hello to the team, so you can email hello@renewalcc.com. And then if you're really enjoying all of these videos, what you can do is click the subscribe button, which is the wonderful red button that you cannot miss on your screen, to be notified of any other videos that come in. You can also listen to our messages on the go. So if you visit renewalcc.com/media, you'll be able to see podcasts, and then that will also link you to the YouTube channel. But maybe actually you just want to support the work that Renewal is doing. And you can do that by visiting renewalcc.com/give, and you can choose where your finance goes. All that's left to say is take care, God bless, and have a great week. Hopefully we'll see you soon.